back to State and Local. You're watching Norfolk Public Access. I'm Anne-Marie Battistone. My guest today, with his topic, represents a fusion of state and local. My guest is David Rosenberg. He's a former candidate for moderator. And any of you who ever attend town meeting, and there aren't enough of you, will recognize David right away, or if you remember him from my previous show. Now, David, I remember you had said that one of your an issue that was very important to you was attendance. And you had gotten together, generated a number of ideas, and then you had asked, had said to whomever won that you would pass those on to them. Now, have you done that yet, or are you, what's happened with that?
Right, so the issue is really participation, so it's more than just attendance. It's participating in ways prior to the start of the town meeting, participating during the town meeting, and during the campaign I was actively soliciting suggestions in addition to what I got out of books and ideas I had myself. And some people had contacted me by email, some people had phoned me, and on election day when I was standing holding a sign, some people came and talked to me. I lost the election, and rather than conveying the suggestions I got merely to the winner, Jay Talman, I decided I should share them with everybody. So I had a website that I was using for the campaign, and I created a page on that website of I think I called it comments and suggestions received, and I've posted everything that I received there. If there were things I received by email, I posted them with maybe a little editing, and if there were things that people had said to me in person or over the phone, then I typed up entries based on my notes, and I added some of my own ideas. And so that is on a page of what was the campaign website. The URL for that is https://sites.google.com/site/Rosenberg for moderator/home/comments, and I hope in post-production the
Katie will put that at the bottom of the screen.
Can be added, and I'd like people to read it. Even though I'm not the town moderator, I'm still interested in seeing participation be increased, and I volunteered to work with the winning candidate, and I have talked to the town administrator and want to talk to the Board of Selectmen about how I can help increase participation, even though I'm not an elected official at this point.
That's very decent of you. I don't think there are a lot of people. I mean, maybe I'm being cynical, but I don't think a lot of people would have. I mean, I think it really speaks to how you believe in this and how this is important to you, regardless of whether you're moderator or not.
Right. It was the reason that I was running was primarily to increase participation, and if I can do that without having won, I would like to work on doing that.
Now, you're going to speak about an amendment to the general laws regarding open meeting law.
Right.
And I know nothing about this, so I'm going to listen, and I will interject with questions because I have no idea about this.
Okay. Well, Massachusetts has an open meeting law. It's very well intended. The purpose of the open meeting law is that public business should be conducted in the public view, so that there's a requirement that meetings of public bodies, a public body in town would be the school committee, the planning board, the recreation commission, the board of selectmen, advisory board, that those meetings need to be noticed. That notice has to be given of those meetings 48 hours in advance, not including weekends or holidays. So, for example, for a Monday meeting, notice would have to be given on
by Wednesday.
Let's see. So even though the town hall is closed on Friday, Friday is not a holiday or a weekend. So a notice on Thursday would have the 48 hours of Thursday
on the website.
Right. So in fact, there are several ways the notice can be given, and the town clerk posts written notices on a bulletin board outside the town clerk's office. It's also on the town calendar, which is linked to from the virtualnorfolk.org website. And the town, sorry, the open meeting law has certain exceptions. It lists conditions under which a public body can have an executive session, but you have to have in an open meeting state that you're going to go to an executive session. You're going to have to state why you're going to an executive session. You have to state whether or not you are going to have another open meeting session after the executive session is over. And in general, the intentions are good. It's, you know, the public should be able to see what's happening. One of the requirements is that a quorum of a public body, and in the case of Board of Selectmen, which is a 3-member board, 2 people constitute a quorum. A quorum of a public body is not allowed to have a deliberation on any subject within their jurisdiction, except at a meeting for which they've given posted notice.
Now, is a quorum always 2/3?
No, a quorum is in general 1 more than half.
Okay.
So in a 9-member body, a quorum would be 5. In a 50, we don't have any, but if we had a 50-member body, a quorum would be 51. I'm sorry, it would
26.
be 26,
Yeah.
right. A 100-member body would be 51, and a 50-member body would be 26. At any rate, so one consequence of saying that they can only deliberate on matters within their jurisdiction at a meeting means that they can't deliberate on the internet. And there are a number of reasons why members of public bodies might want to communicate with each other and with their constituents on the internet, but that would be a violation of the open meeting law. So
now let me just interrupt you. So if some members leave a meeting and go out and discuss in the parking lot, that's a violation, is it not?
If it's a quorum, yes.
Oh, okay.
So on a 5-member board,
Still, all right.
2 could have such a discussion,
But not 3.
But if 2 had the discussion and then one of them went away and a different person came, so there were 2 separate discussions of 2 people, but a total of 3 people were involved, that would be a violation, because even though they were all together, they were having a deliberation sort of sequentially. At any rate, so I'm going to list 4 problems that we've either seen or suspected. One is that when we wanted to have a web-based discussion of articles on the town meeting warrant, we wanted to involve people in town discussing the articles prior to the town warrant, to the town meeting, so that people could ask questions or present arguments supporting or in opposition to articles, or ask about past history, or ask about practices in other towns, or ask about how this this motion would interact with state or federal law, or whatever issues that they wanted to raise. And the people who are most knowledgeable about articles on the warrant are usually the board or committee that submitted the article. So a school article would be best understood by school board members, or an article about baseball fields would be best understood by the Recreation Commission, or an article about a zoning bylaw would be best understood by the planning board. Those people who are the most qualified, could most benefit the discussion, were barred from participating in the discussion, because that would be a deliberation by a quorum of a public body in a venue other than a physical meeting.
Huh.
And so the impetus for this was that we wanted to have a discussion, and we wanted to be able to have the advice and hear from the board who knew most about it in the web-based discussion, and were advised that that would be construed as a violation of the open meeting law. So that was one problem. Another problem is that many boards and committees are made up of part-time unpaid volunteers and meet perhaps once a month. So take an example of a board or committee that meets for 2 hours once a month. 2 hours once a month is approximately 1.5, it's a little less than 1.5% of the working hours in a month. And if you look at the progress that such a board or committee makes, it's not surprising that they make progress at a rate of 1.5%, what one would have hoped for from a full-time, a group that could communicate full-time. There is, at least on the boards that I've been a member of, there's been no desire to have any secrets to withhold information, but there was certainly a desire to be able to communicate more frequently. And so if there were a mechanism by which they could communicate and the public had access to the communications, that would allow them to be much more efficient in what they were doing and still be fully transparent. Let's see, there's a third issue is that people are very busy. They have jobs, they have child care, they have elder care, they have helping kids with homework, maybe they're in school themselves, they have their own homework, they have religious obligations, they have social obligations, they might have political obligations. Basically, we all have busy lives, and so it's hard for people to attend meetings. And if there were some mechanism by which people could monitor the discussions of public bodies without having to attend the meetings, that would be helpful. In particular, there are some people who, because of their age or eyesight, don't like to drive at night or don't like to go out alone in the evening, or don't like to be on cold, icy, slippery roads or sidewalks. And there are people whose business doesn't allow them to get back to Norfolk at night. They're stuck in Boston, or there are people who are out of state on business, or there are people who are on vacation, and allowing those people to have access to see the discussions would be helpful to them, rather than saying you have to be at this meeting to see it.
Now, what about Skype? Would that have ever been useful, where I guess it's a free service and there's a camera involved, and I guess the person who's not there would have a camera as well? Have you ever thought about that as a solution to this kind of problem?
So yeah, I've certainly thought about that, but right now, let me back up and say that the open meeting law says that the Attorney General can issue regulations for remote participation. And when the open meeting law was first passed, the current version went into effect in July 1st, 2010, that the Attorney General didn't have regulations in place and remote participation was not permissible. Now the Attorney General's office has issued some regulations, and those regulations say that there still has to be a meeting in some physical location,
right,
and a quorum of the people need to be present, right, at the location, and the person chairing the meeting has to be there, and if the executive body of the municipality, in our case the Board of Selectmen, opt in for remote participation, then it would be possible for people who can't attend that meeting, and there are a list of 5 possible reasons, and one is disability, and one is that they're it's a remote location, and I don't remember all the others, but that those people, that as long as a quorum and the person chairing the meeting was present, together at a physical location that the public could attend, other people could attend remotely. However, the sort of situation that I'm talking about, where a group of members of a public body want to communicate with each other or with the public, and they're not gathered together. They are at their separate locations and possibly at their separate times. I mean, maybe one person wants to say something at 6 o'clock in the morning when he wakes up, and somebody else wants to add a comment at, during his lunch break at noon, and somebody else wants to, chime in, at supper time, and somebody else has been busy until midnight and, has some time to work on this at 1 a.m. That sort of thing would not be permissible. So using Skype wouldn't work very well in that situation anyway, but even putting that aside, it's a violation of the open meeting law. And using Skype when you don't have a quorum gathered together in a location is also a violation of the open meeting law.
Now, this amendment, is this proposed or has this gone into effect?
It certainly has not gone into effect. Let me tell you about at least one other problem before I get to the amendment to address the problem. My experience in Norfolk, and I don't have much experience in other towns, but I was on a committee in another town before I moved to Norfolk, is that people are really trying to do their best. They're not hiding things. There aren't, corrupt deals going on, but people have day jobs often. They have marriages. They have they want to do good work for the committee that they're on, and if the committee has some time constraint, like for example, they need to present a report at a town meeting, and the town meeting is a certain date, they need to get the work done somehow, and there's a conflict. I mean, so people could take time off from their day, take days off from their day job to have an extra meeting to, deal with last minute issues. They could fail to come home to their, family and wives. They could do a shoddy job. They could miss the deadline. But the suspicion is that, at least on occasion, not in Norfolk, not in Norfolk that I know of, that what they decide to do is violate the open meeting law. That is, they're not allowed to deliberate by email because that would be private and the public can't see it, but making a trade-off between not doing the job, not getting it done on time, getting a divorce because your spouse, can't put up with what you're doing, getting fired from your job because you are off at meetings instead of doing the thing, that they're likely to, honor the spirit of trying to get things done and exchange email, not because they're trying to hide anything, but just because it's expedient. And it's, the lesser of several evils in this case. And if the open meeting law didn't exist, then they wouldn't have any problem about publishing the emails and letting everybody see what transpired because they weren't trying to hide anything. But in fact, in view of the open meeting law and the fact that the open meeting law says you can't communicate by email because that's a deliberation by a quorum of a public body and on a matter within their jurisdiction in a venue other than a posted meeting, they would be inclined to hide the emails so as to not publicize their violation of the open meeting law. And if the open meeting law didn't exist, they could freely share the emails.
It's astonishing how many people have gotten in trouble with these emails and don't seem to realize that people can source them. I mean, I'm thinking of that, I was at Anglican University with the emails of complaining about the something that was put in the which was against their view, that was put in the magazine. I think this magazine was Science, and then there was a big blow up that they were, as scientists, you're not supposed to be complaining that somebody isn't following your lead. But we're just going to take a little break here. When we come back, I'll be here with David Rosenberg, who's going to tell us about this amendment to the general law regarding the open meeting law. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to State and Local. Thanks for staying with us. My guest, David Rosenberg, is going to talk about an amendment to the general laws regarding the open meeting law. And he's going to tell us a little bit about it. And
Right. So working with Dan Winslow, who was our state rep at the time, we drafted a bill, it's House Bill 2908, which would amend the Massachusetts open meeting law. And the amendments it would make is that it would define something called a public internet discussion, which is distinct from a meeting. It would require that a notice of a public internet discussion must be publicly posted in the same way that a notice of a meeting must be posted. It would require that the notice have instructions for free internet access to the public internet discussion. It would require that the public at large be able to monitor the public internet discussion as fully as the members of the public body themselves. It would require that every statement in the public internet discussion be date and time stamped and attributed to the person who made it. It would require that a transcript or archive of the public internet discussion be kept, and it would require that the transcript be freely accessible via the internet. And if those conditions were met, then that would a public internet discussion would not be a violation of the open meeting law. It would be considered open and permitted, under this amended version of the open meeting law.
now, how would that announcement, the notification rather, would you have to go to a certain site to check it? Would you be registered and you would get an email? How would that be done?
So
the notice of the
right, I understand. The amendment says in the same way as notices of public meetings. So right now we have a town calendar that announces, there's a Board of Selectmen's meeting at 7 o'clock on
what
this
would be
day.
on the website, the town website?
It would be handled the same way that announcements of town meetings are handled. I think I mentioned earlier that in addition to the website, meetings of town boards and committees are also posted on a bulletin board that the town clerk has, and so the same procedures would be used. The announcement would be just like the announcements of meetings of public bodies, boards and committees, except that instead of saying in room 124 of the town hall at 7 o'clock, it would
give
say
the address.
would give instructions for internet access.
Okay.
That bill was sponsored by a total of 4 legislators, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and the bill is really nonpartisan. That is, it doesn't have
Right.
in no way favors any party
Right.
over any other, it was assigned to the Joint Committee on State Administration and Regulatory Oversight, and they held a hearing as they were obligated to do, and the committee, I've been informed, has decided to send this for further study, which in effect means killing it for this legislative session.
Exactly.
I have
exactly what it means.
I have a petition on a website soliciting support for this bill, and if people go to the website and sign the petition, it basically sends a message to their state rep, and in the case of Norfolk, that's Sean Dooley, and to the state senator, in the case of Norfolk, that's Richard Ross, expressing support for this. And
You have that site? Can you give us that?
yes, I can give you that.
I'll sign it.
Great. So that is http://bit.ly, that's bit.ly/open meeting law, where open meeting law is run together with no delimiters between the words. And the open meeting law part needs to be in lowercase. And again, I hope
Yeah,
that
Katie will do that. Yeah,
will
Katie will
get added. And I've
I'm just curious, excuse me, I'm just curious. Do you know who the other Republican was that sponsored it by any chance?
Yes, it was Richard Ross.
Oh, in both houses. Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, all right.
So
I thought it was just strictly out of the
well, so it was a House bill because it was
starting in the House.
Started by Dan, but Richard Ross
all right.
supported it, and as I said, 2 other Democrats supported it also, or sponsored it, co-sponsored it. And so I've talked to Sean about what we do, assuming that we can't get any action on this during this legislative session, and he's said that he's willing to refile it in the next session. And during the course of the discussions that I've had about the bill, people have asked some questions or made suggestions for improvements, and so I'm aware of a few minor improvements. I mean, the bill would stay basically as it is, but there are a few fine-tuning issues that I'd like to have made in the version that's submitted.
Will you have to go into a hearing for that?
So for this session, I testified both in person and submitted written testimony to the committee that was hearing it, and in my written testimony, I talked about 4 issues where I thought minor improvement was possible and suggested wording. I think that had the bill progressed in this session, that I would have worked with them to get those changes in. And it's conceivable, but I would have to say unlikely that we're going to get anywhere with it in this session. And so I'll get those wording changes into the version.
And what's the number again in the designation?
It's House Bill 2908.
H2908, okay.
Correct. And the website that I referred to, that is bit.ly/open meeting law, in addition to being a petition, also has a link to the bill itself.
Oh, good.
But the bill is, if you read the bill itself, it's just editing instructions. It says on line 2607, remove this word and put in this word, and after this
amendment.
Right, and so it doesn't make much sense. I mean, it is the official bill, but it doesn't make much sense unless you're reading it in conjunction with the current law, because it's the editing instructions for changing the current law. So I also have on that website a link to a version of the law that has line numbers in it, and I also have a link to a file that I created that has an executive summary of what the bill would do, has a discussion of the motivation for the bill, some of the issues that I discussed with you just now, and also has a frequently asked questions section where I list questions and answers to them, so that might be useful for people who, after having heard this, want more details than we've covered here. And one might say, why would you bother signing the petition now if it's not likely to make it out of this session? And the answer is because I'd like to be able to notify that set of people when a new bill is filed in the next session.
Absolutely.
And invite them to support that version of the bill.
So practically speaking, so what actually is so what is this going to actually, let's say somebody like me, what is it going to allow them to do? They would go to that website that you just cited, or? Right,
they go to the bit.ly/open meeting law site, and on that site
what I mean to say is, I'm sorry, let's say it gets passed and it's in effect.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay, it's a different issue. So if it's in effect, it really affects members of public bodies, in that the public bodies would be permitted to have public internet discussions, and as somebody who's not a member of a public body, if a public body chose, let me back up and say that it would make public internet discussions an option that public bodies could have. It would not force public bodies to hold public internet discussions. If unless they chose to. But for those public bodies that chose to hold public internet discussions, it would allow members of the public to fully monitor what the discussion was and have the convenience of being able to monitor that at any time of your choosing, from any place of your choosing, through any internet connected device of your choosing, a tablet or a computer or a smartphone or whatever, wherever and whenever you want it. All you need is internet connectivity. Right, so it doesn't guarantee that would happen. I mean, even if the bill, if the amendment were made, some bodies could say, we're not interested in public internet discussions, we'll do things with in-person meetings only. But I know that
how do you think that will shake out? Do you have any, I know you're not on any boards now, but how do you think that will be received?
So this is really doing two things. One, it is allowing public internet discussions where the conversation is between members of the board, and the other thing is it's allowing the members of the board to have a discussion with their constituents, with the the public at large. Many boards, not only in Norfolk but from lots of places, find it very constricting that they can't get work done because they're only allowed to talk to each other through this narrow window. And again, the issue is not that they want to hide anything, it's just they want to be more efficient. So I think many boards, I believe, are likely to take advantage of the facility that says that as long as they make this public and allow the public to see it all, that they can talk to each other whenever they want, and they would find that helps them be more efficient in conducting their business.
But still with the 48-hour notice.
So the answer is yes, but there's this question of how long a public internet discussion lasts. And
is that included in the?
Well,
or is that one of the tweaking?
I'll get to that in a second. So one can envision a public internet discussion that's from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. On a certain day, or one can envision what we were trying to do with the discussion of the warrant for the town meeting, which was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for maybe a 3-week period where anybody could come into the discussion when they wanted, make comments, leave, come back later. And on other subjects, one could imagine a discussion that was continuously operating for months or even years. So one of the things that the amendment says is that if there is a continuing public internet discussion, it has to be reposted at least once every month. So, I mean, the fear is that, a group could post something once and then this continued for 5 years and new people moved into town and they were unaware that this was going on because they didn't go back to read the notices from five years ago. And so this amendment would require that if it's going to continue, it has to be reposted once a month. And yeah, there would be the requirement of 48 hours before it starts, but assuming it continues for a long time, then the 48 hours.
And maybe you just maybe I missed what you. So how long would it be open once it starts?
That's up to the public body, but conceivably years.
I mean, what I meant to say was the time frame in which you can be reading and adding and checking and so forth.
Conceivably years. I mean, the public body could decide to, end it and close it after 2 weeks or after 1 day or whatever they wanted, but there's nothing forcing them to do that. They could decide that this is, say, the school committee, and the school committee is discussing school business, and they'd like to have the discussion continuing to the indefinite future.
So an issue that was time sensitive, the body would would take that information and deal with it,
Yes.
include it, and then there would be another topic that could
Yes.
start up.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so one of the changes that I had proposed to this amendment, and that I'll try to get written into a new version, is to say that while meetings are allowed to have votes and take formal actions, and meetings have a quorum requirement, that a public internet discussion doesn't have a quorum requirement, because people could come and go
Right.
at arbitrary times. And since it's only supposed to be a discussion, that votes can't be taken and no official action can be taken. All that you can do in a public internet discussion is have a discussion, and that any votes to be taken would have to be taken at a meeting, and meetings are still in-person meetings.
So it wouldn't be like a chat room where, it'd be sort of like Norfolk Net, where somebody says something and then somebody sees it and comments, and in between there could be other in other words, there's nothing live about it
It need
in the
not
present
be.
time.
Right. So the amendment isn't specific about that. It certainly could be like Norfolk Net, with the exception that, as I mentioned, everything needs to be date and time stamped and attributed to the person who made it.
Oh,
So
well, right.
One could not have these.
The anonymity of the initials.
Right. But and even the amendment doesn't specifically state that, but I am assuming that things would be more structured than they are in Norfolk Net. Norfolk Net is basically ordered chronologically.
Right, that's
And-
true, yes.
And I would see things clustered in topics and subtopics, and there would be a more hierarchical structure.
And who would be the webmaster for this?
Again, the amendment
Somebody in the town, or?
The amendment doesn't address that, and there are several possibilities. One possibility is, some volunteer on the public body. Another possibility is some service that is created to be in the business of
Shouldn't that
providing.
be part of the amendment? It seems like that would be a key element of who's going to be doing this. And how, and are all the comments going to be included? Are all the, again, I'm being cynical, but I mean, without a webmaster of some designation, things could be maybe submitted and not appear, or they might not be clustered properly.
So the difficulty about trying to get too specific about technology is, that the technology changes, and one doesn't want to lock any particular towns into, you have to do it exactly this way. The intention was to give them the freedom to do it in a way that worked for them, assuming that the public has complete access to it and has, all the information about how to access it.
Is that something you would like to do?
That I personally
be-
would like to, I don't know, maybe, unsure.
Okay.
That's, yeah, I don't know, I need to get
Get it passed.
the bill passed and the law amended, and then we'll see how things work.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on with this. This is something it's really very interesting, and so we will put those addresses will be there, and it's H. What's the bill again? H.
2908.
H 2908 gone into committee, but hopefully will come out of committee, and Sean Dooley's going to keep an eye on it. So, thank you so much for coming in again, David. I always love to have you on. And thank you for watching State and Local. I'm Anne Marie Battistone, and you've been watching Norfolk Public Access.